And we are live. Things like, you are live, boy. So, this is the deal. I'm tired. I'm tired because when there's crazy energy in the world, it just pushes me down, man, like a pancake, you know? And it's hard. I've worked my life to try to surround myself with a type of energy that you can just push back and then keep it at bay. You know what I mean? But right now, like even politically, the protests going on, people, whatever, fake outrage, there's paid protesters, there's sheep following through. It doesn't really matter because it's still energy. It's still happening, right? Israel and Iran going at it, Israel going after Iran. And that's just like a drop in the bucket compared to this other energy that I'm feeling that's coming. That's going to kind of, uh, I don't know. It's going to be big. Let's just say it's going to be big. I don't want to go any further into it, other than the fact that I feel like it's just going to be super, super big, and that's kind of part of what I'm feeling. But man, you just have to, you know, if you're an empath, you know what I'm talking about, and it's just something that's got a grip. It's a grip. It gets a grip on you, and you have to just block it out, squelch it out, surround yourself with that white light, and just kind of push, push, push back. you know, I like distractions myself. I do stupid things as a distraction. Maybe not stupid. I mean, like I don't watch TV. I watch YouTube. Like a lot of YouTube. You hear people saying that a lot these days, that they don't watch TV, they watch YouTube. But there's a few interesting people that I like, and a lot of it's just real. Tornado chasing can't get any more real than tornado chasing. These guys just driving around their cars, these young dudes. You know, I'd be doing it too if I was there. When I was young, we did all kinds of dumb stuff. We used to chase hurricanes. There was no YouTube. Nobody made took pictures of it. Nobody did any of that. You did it because you did it. Now people do things because of YouTube or because of TikTok or because whatever. And like there's a lot of ugliness out there. There's a lot of like TikTok. There's a lot of animal abuse. It's terrible things. You know, it's not healthy. It's not healthy for your mind. It's not healthy for you. Your whole essence of what you are to partake in those things. You can't unsee something. You're flipping around the channel. You can't unsee what you're seeing. You know, and as soon as your brain figures out what you're seeing, it's too late. So, and there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of negative, heavy stuff that's out there. You might even want to say evil because they take a foothold in that type of thing, and they want to lure people in. You lure young people in. Get people acclimated, especially desensitized to the horrible content and things they put out there. Which if you're desensitized as a person, makes you lesser as a person. You're not feeling as much as you should be feeling. When terrible things happen to people, you're like, whatever, because you've already been desensitized to it. So I think one of the worst things that ever happened to humanity is social media, because it's not 10% of it is sharing pictures with your friends or birthday, happy birthday, whatever. 90% of it is just negative, man. You could go on X, which used to be Twitter, and just all day long, it's just people that argue. They either argue with each other, agree with each other. The ones who agree with each other argue with each other, others, and it's like, man, and they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, oh my god. And that's the world we're in. I mean, people But don't you think that negativity, that negative energy is out there? It travels, it spreads to other people. So I like to think that people can be better than that, rise to a higher level than that, not succumb to their hate because it's such an ugly thing. Hate is such an ugly thing. It makes people ugly. It is ugly, So it's good to have good people around you. Sometimes the people around you may not be so good, and they're dragging you down. Sometimes those people who aren't so good seek out people who are good just to drag you down. So I'm watching Trump's military parade today, right? $48 million. As somebody who is has to buy food and pay my electric bill, that's a lot of money. $48 million. So it had sponsorship. So I forced myself to watch it. I like a parade. My parades usually have Snoopy a balloon going down Fifth Avenue, or whatever. Rose or the Rose Bowl parade. Awesome. Flowers, you know what I mean? That's beautiful, man. Flowers, colorful. It's bubble gum for the brain. It doesn't even make you think. Doesn't even make you think. Doesn't even provoke a thought. You're like, look at those flowers. Really beautiful. So, I'm dying. Same thing for Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, except between the commercial content and the direction of the propaganda, because it's about propaganda now, isn't it? It's commercials. Commercials is propaganda. They're not trying to sell you a product. They don't care what the hell you buy. There's only a few companies left that own anything. You got to buy something from somebody. They really don't care. It's propaganda, right? To put that image out there to show you a certain thing, or push a certain image on a certain thing on you to brainwash it into your head if you watch enough of these commercials, right? So I'm watching the military parade. Trump's out there, hedge Pete the Hedgehog, his military defense dude, Secretary of Defense, right? Melania. Every time I see her, I always say to myself, she must smell really nice. And of all the people that smell like anything, she must smell really nice. And she's got the money for the best creams and lotions and stuff. And she just, the hair, whatever. That's all I can think of. I like the fact that we have a first lady that I like to think that smells really nice. Yeah, you know what I mean. But I can see the military 250 years old. Tanks, tanks, tanks for the memories. Uh, it wasn't well coordinated. The parade. It wasn't. I don't know. Whoever put it together did a terrible, terrible, horrible job. They actually should have planned, got an event coordinator, a parade coordinator, or whatever. Not who they used, because clearly it was a failure. And since all the tanks are green, the uniforms are green, all the stuff is green or camouflage. It's kind of like in your mind as you're watching it, it's there, but it's not there. You're like, oh, okay. There's nothing colorful. Then you got, the color of the road and the sidelines. They needed something. They needed something. You needed something going on there. So anyway, aside from the grandeur of delusion, and what I don't know what whatever the reason really was to push that. A lot of totalitarian regimes do the same thing. They put on their weapons on display, their soldiers on display. They want to flex their muscles. I don't think that we in the United States needs to flex our muscles. I think people know exactly what we're capable of. If they don't, then they don't have a brain. They don't understand anything about anything when it comes to the swiftness of power, real power, planning, being ready all the time, and then the swiftness that goes with that. Iran's getting a taste of that right now with Israel. Israel had planned their attacks on Iran for a long time. They swooped on in. They took out military commanders. They took out their nuclear scientists. They took out nuclear facilities. Now they're taking out their oil facilities, which they said they wouldn't do. But because Iran shot a bunch of missiles at Israel and a few of them made it through and destroyed a few neighborhoods, killed a few people, then their response was to blow up these oil tankers. Their main oil refinery in Tehran. So I'm not having a problem with anything. I, Iran should have been settled a long time ago. And if they don't do it, they didn't do it now. They would have had those bombs. They would have been able to inflict much more casualty on Israel or anybody else. They decide to attack. They would make those bombs. They would make that material available to other terrorist groups that they support. So you know, now is the time to settle their hash. Now is the time to topple that regime. Trump said he knew about it, but we're not involved. I like that answer. It's a good answer. It's important to put that distance between us, even though obviously it was guaranteed we have intelligence involved in other aspects, and we do supply Israel. Trump had just gifted Israel uh, 18,000, 2,000 pound bombs a couple months ago, whatever. So obviously there was a thing that they were planning and getting ready to do. But not many people are arguing with this fact. I think that it has to happen, you know, because sometimes you have to act like a lion to live like a lamb, and you can't be so passive where you're like, okay, I'm going to let this person go out of control. I'm going to let them do what they want to do. I'm going to let them come upon these bombs. They had enough material to make 9 atomic bombs, like the same bomb that got dropped on Hiroshima, which is a very big blast. You know, so that's going on now, and then of course, Israel's got interceptors, which probably intercepted 98% of that traffic coming in, but it doesn't. It's not perfect, and they still get hit, and they still have explosions, and they still have to deal with this, man. I mean, but you're talking about a terrorist state, Iran, who they pray the death of America and Israel every day, several times a day. This is what they set up doing when their prayer is death to us, and then they go about their day until the next time they pray and death to us. I mean, and they're hell bent on destroying, especially Israel, right? So they have the right to protect themselves, and I think they need to follow through. Every time this has happened before, they stopped. And much of that was especially because of American politics getting in the way. But they stopped. They stopped. And you can't stop. You have to follow through. You have to follow through. And then you have to understand what you're dealing with. That type of mentality. You can't let them exist. That mentality, because that mentality doesn't want anybody else to exist. They're not happy just being unto themselves. They want to change everybody else and destroy what they call the infidels. Meanwhile, they don't even know their own book. They don't even know their own Quran. I've read the Quran multiple times. I helped a friend study the Quran by reading it to him, and him reading it back to me so he could memorize it. Doing so, I memorized the Quran. And you know what? It's a bunch. It's very similar to other religious writings. Muhammad, let me tell you about Muhammad. The last 3 years of Muhammad's life, when he was sick and he was isolated, he had other things to say. He had told people that he had changed his mind on things. They didn't let anybody talk to him. They kept him in there. They didn't want him changing anything. They didn't want to change the Quran. They didn't want any of that, right? They wanted what they wanted, was something that fits into their ideas of hate, right? It's hate. It's a cult. These all these religions are cults, Catholicism and all that. It's a cult. If you don't know that, then I mean, if you're in it, I don't want to insult you, you know what I mean. But it's not exactly peace and love, is it? It's not spreading the momentum of God. So what's the momentum of God? You say, Michael. You know what the momentum of God is? It's creation. And creation happens every nanosecond of the day. Without it, things would die. Without it, things would die off. Without it, there would be no rain. There would be nothing. This planet would just die. Everything would die because this is creation in of itself, right? So I'm watching the military parade, and I'm seeing all the army, right? Men, women, boys and girls. Looks like to me, I'm getting old, man. Men and women, black and white, Asian, Spanish, whatever. All religions, all types, marching down the road together as one. It's an army of one, right? You know what they say. Nice metaphor, really, for what this country is supposed to be. The melting pot, because it was the wretched refuse that came here from other places. And they came here to live together, to contribute to this country, to build it up, make it better, bring their culture, bring their ideas, bring their way of life, add things to the society. And they didn't ask for anything. They gave. Those people that came from other countries back in the day, they gave. They gave to this country. They built this country. They built the bridges. They built the tunnels. They built the buildings. They built the highways. They built everything. They gave. Right? They didn't show up at the door with their hand out saying, give me, I'm entitled to this. Give me this or I'll take it from you. I'll steal, I'll rob, I'll rape, I'll kill, I'll do what I want to do. That's what we've been dealing with the last several years of this influx of these illegal aliens. So we naturalize over 1 million people in the United States every year. Over 1 million people. I talked to one of these guys recently from Ethiopia. He was from Somalia. And then we just started yapping in a conversation. And he said he had just gotten his green card and he felt so good about it. He felt so good about being an American, you know. And the green card, you still got a little ways to go, but I knew what he was saying. And then he was so excited and so happy about being an American. And he just kept saying that. He didn't reference anything in particular except being an American. And then he liked the fact that he had 2 jobs. He liked the fact that he was able to get them. He liked the fact that how people treat him with respect and dignity, you know. But he said he was so happy to call me his fellow American, you know. And that made me feel good, like about being an American. You're like, oh yeah, that's good. We're both Americans. You pay taxes. And I said, congratulations. You can now complain like everybody else. You pay taxes. But his enthusiasm was refreshing. It was nice. It wasn't condemning and it wasn't saying this country's terrible because of this and whatever. And you can give to the people and they still look at you like a piece of garbage and what else can I take from you? What else? See, We don't need that. Nobody needs that. That's why the countries that these people came from are failing because it's got that mentality. That mentality. They're not trying to make things better. They will try to make their own countries better. They don't want to do that. They want to come to another country and then ruin that place, take what they can, and then move on to the next like a locust. You know, watching that army walk down the street, all the different people, I was proud of that. I was proud of the melting pot that this country is. And the strength that we have comes from that right there, you know? But the people who come here need to respect that. They need to respect us. They need to respect this country and its laws and the way. And it's something that you have to work for. You don't just get a college degree because you want one. You have to go and learn and study and work for it and achieve those goals. And then you have it. You worked for it, and you can be proud that you worked for it. You know, it's important to have that self esteem that you matter, you've done something, and sense of purpose. What's your purpose? I know people that say that all the time and ask me what their purpose is. You're asking me what your purpose is? Eat tacos. How's that? Is that your purpose? Is that a purpose? God created you, didn't create you with a pre programmed, this is the way it's exactly going to be. You have to learn and find your own way through life. Through learning and finding your own way, that purpose finds you. You don't find the purpose. You don't say, I'm a carpenter and I became a carpenter and that's my purpose in life. No, it's a job. It's not your purpose. Your purpose finds you. It takes your abilities, the things that are special about you, and allows you to apply that to things that are going to further you in life and love and happiness and kindness, all the beautiful things that you can get out of life. Are those things, though they cost money? No. They say the best things in life are free. Yeah, you got to pay your bills, though. You got to eat, you know. There's things that you need. There's things that you need. Maybe you don't need everything. There are people that think they need everything, you know. I was in that cookie cutter life for a bit there, man, when I was in my relationship, which lasted for 15 years. And then I saw the way they were. I wouldn't conform because I'm not a conformist, you know. And all of the people that would come, the friends of the friends and all the people we made friends with. Not really me. I was on the outskirts, man. Because they all saw they all thought I was some mafia guy. They had no idea. They just knew I was a private investigator. They didn't know anything else. I'm not someone that answers a lot of questions happily. If I feel I'll talk about myself all day long, but the second you start asking me questions about me, I'll clam up. That's the same for a lot of people, man. You know, once you feel like you're being interrogated. So we would have parties, and all the kids. Really, it was the kids' friends' parents. They all come over, right? I'd barbecue, do stuff, cook, bake. I'm into that. I find a certain zen. It's also rewarding making something nice and enjoying it after. I don't cook for myself anymore because I'm just me. So when you just you, it's hard to do that stuff. But and then I had an excuse to keep running to the kitchen and also to my office or out to the garage, whatever, and then kind of just be there and then go over there, And so all the kids, all they were all psychiatrists and shit, like all of them. I don't know if there was any in there that weren't. I'd have to think about it. There was one guy who was in finance at Cornell, like, and that was it. I mean, the rest of them were all like psychiatrists. Eh, If you're hanging out with a half a dozen psychiatrists or more, the conversation is very weird. I don't think they even know how to be normal and also be themselves and be around people. So they start asking me like weird questions. I'm either not going to answer you or I'm going to give you an answer that's out of space, man. I like messing with psychiatrists, you know. But basically, if you're darting off and doing this and grabbing that and whatever, you don't have time to talk to people overall, you know. And then the only guy I was really friends with was the finance guy, and he was like a Republican, like a real heavy duty, cool guy. He was cool. We had some good conversations, but even that got too much, you know. Like I'm not really. I like people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not as much of a people person as you would think. Sitting there listening, I'm an introvert, and I kind of just like my own space. I can sit by a waterfall and just listen to it and just chill and let my mind just go, you know, and soak in those negative ions and feel all that. I can watch the people I watch on YouTube, like I said, the tornado dude. A lot of it's just these guys driving down the road. I'm cool with that. I barely even go anywhere anymore. It makes me feel like I'm in the car with them, like a dog in the car with my head out the window. You know, all I do is work, eat, sleep, feed the birds. You know what I mean? It's much more simple, I guess, now. And I like this narrowboat dude I've become friendly with over the years. I was there for him when he first started the show, and now we kind of talk on the side here and there. You know, David John, he's got a great show. Uh, you know, and if you like narrowboating, he cruises the canals of England, and you know, right now he's cruising the canals in France with some chickie. He's having a good time. He's enjoying his life. You know, narrowboat is that's you know what's nice about the narrowboat. It's a slow pace. It goes 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour. I think the canals you can't even go more than 5 or 6 miles an hour. So he's putting down. You go through your locks, open the lock, do your thing, and you can see all the roadways that you're passing under, the traffic flying over, cruising, trains flying past, and here's this dude just going pup, 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 just down the road, down the canal. I love that. That's bubble gum for the brain. That's something that relaxes me. That's something that is therapeutic. You know, more than a psychiatrist could ever be. I went to see a psychiatrist when I was a kid. And that guy was nuts, man. You know, because I had grown up in a house full of abuse, and I guess in the sixth grade I let it all out, and then they were like, "Oh my god, he needs a psychiatrist." And then I go in there, the guy would ask me stupid questions. I give him stupid answers. I told him I talked to my cat. He's like, "You talk to your cat? Really? Does he talk back to you?" I'm like, "No, what are you crazy?" Like, well, he meows. Yeah, meow, meow. You know, talk to my cat. Everybody talks to their cat. Everybody talks to their pet. But I grew up in a house that was very dangerous, where there a lot of threats of death and murder and all that other stuff. And a little kid, when you're a little kid, you gotta deal with it. You gotta deal with it. You grow up with it. You gotta deal with it. Just something that you got. You know, it's not. Oh, that's the cards you were dealt. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter. The psychiatrist ain't living through that. The psychiatrist can go home to his nice house and go to sleep in his nice bed and wake up and not have to worry about some psycho killer killing them in the middle of the street. My step grandfather, my grandmother's husband, Used to threaten to kill us in our sleep. Mom was a working mom, had two jobs, was trying to get enough money together just to move us out of there because she was paying my grandmother rent, paying for a whole bunch of other stuff for her. Whatever, man. And it took us a while. We did get out of there eventually, but not until the damage was done, you know. And I still think about it. Here I am, years later, man. Still talking about it, still thinking about it. It's a thing that, does it bother me? Does it stop me from living life? No. It enables me to help other people who are going through similar things because nobody was there for my mother and I. Nobody. Not the cops, not the town officials. Oh, the Catholic Archdiocese was in the town. Nobody cared. If you think people are out there caring, you don't understand. My ex's kids, I used to tell them, you go out that door, people aren't going to love you. No matter if they say they're going to love you, doesn't matter what they say to you. If you think that you're going to get into a relationship with someone and be there forever, that's rare. That's rare, rare. May as well have a dodo bird farm because it's rare, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare. But your family is what you got, and then you should forge those relationships and keep them strong, and make sure that you're there for them and they're there for you, as much as you can, because also you can pick your friends, you can't pick your family. If you have some good friends, your friends will be there for you. I'm there for my friends, man. They need me, they know I'm there, right? And they know they can call me 3 o'clock in the morning and say, help me out, and I'll do it. Because that's just the way it is. It's part of the golden rule. Your family, maybe your family's working with you, working against you. I don't know. I don't know. That's up for you to decide. But the ones who are good, you keep those relationships alive, yeah. But I think with all this heaviness, it makes it harder to navigate life. I think people start feeling it. Just every day becomes a struggle because if you watch the news at all, it's not really helpful because it's just hate bait, race bait. Say what they can to sensationalize something to get you to the point where you're feeling emotions about it. They're emotional vampires. They just suck the emotion out of you, overexhaust you with this nonsense, and then you realize that you can't do anything about it anyway. All those protesters who are out there, the sheep, the paid protesters. Now the paid protesters are getting $150 a piece, to go out there and be paid protesters. The sheep are getting nothing. But who are they protesting and why? Now, when it came to abolish ICE, this is the same crowd that screamed to get rid of the police. When they did get rid of the police, what happened? Crime went out of control. Out of control. This is the same people, the same ones who said get rid of the police are now saying bring the police back. Why'd you get rid of the police? Because you can't make them happy because they don't know even what they're talking about. The things they're protesting, they don't even get it. So ICE was going after all these terrible criminals. Some of them were murderers and rapists. You should see the laundry list of criminals. They're, no, we got to keep them. We have to keep them. And then when these same people who are yelling and screaming get raped, killed, or whatever by the same criminals, what happens then? The ones who are still alive are calling for more police. I love that because I just watched them say they don't want the police. Now they're saying it again. I saw people holding signs, no more police. And as I'm watching this, I just really feel heavy duty sadness for the police. Because, man, what a tough job. What a tough job. What a hard job. And it's a tough physical job, rough and tumble. It's not you going to the office every day, putting some stuff in the computer, man. This is like real, And they put on that uniform every day. They strap on their little utility belt with their gun and whatever, and they go out there and they know that any time they could lose their life in that job. It is a high risk, dangerous job. They know that they can risk their life every day they risk and can lose their life anytime. So, when I was in my criminal justice course back in the day, they said that over 80% of all police officers cite helping people as the reason they wanted to be a police officer. Over 80%. That's pretty dedicated right there. A large group of people, different colors, different types, different sexes, all for the same cause. We're here to save people. We want to help people. We want to save people. And they're getting spit in their face by these illegal aliens. I saw that. You come to my country and spit in my police officers' faces, and you want us to feel bad for you? You want us to give you comfort and aid? You want us? I mean, I'm seeing that as the enemy. That's the enemy right there. That's not the friend. That's not a friend. That's an enemy right there. That's somebody who wants to destroy us. That's somebody who's coming not only disrespecting us and our country and our way of life, but our police officers who are the first responders who would help anyone. Doesn't matter what country you come from. If there's a problem or something, the cop would come and help you. You know? I know a guy who got shot 9 times. 9 times. And survived. And he said he survived because the first cop on the scene kept him awake, kept talking to him, kept telling him, big black guy. He had some trouble in his life. He was living in a terrible area, high crime. The cops see that often. White cop shows up. And he said, we're going to get you through this. We're going to help you live. He's like, I'm not going to let you fall asleep. I'm not going to. He's like, the stuff he said to him was amazing. This guy used to hate cops before that. Because anytime he ran into one is usually when he committed a crime. He used to hate cops. And he said it changed his whole life. Just seeing what that one police officer did for him. He didn't know him. No reason to do it. And was it the job that allowed the cop to do it because he's on the job? No. Maybe other police officers wouldn't do that. Who knows? It was the person in the uniform. That person in the uniform. They have a name. They have a family. They have a history. So every last one of them, every person wearing that uniform has that family, has a purpose, and they became a police officer for a reason. So that needs to be respected. And now there was one guy who was spitting on the flag, burning our flag and spitting on the flag. And I hardly ever get offended by anything, even though I admit I'm overly sensitive. And that's one of the special things about me. Actually, you want to be with somebody who is overly sensitive, but it's always deserving. It's not something that is unwarranted. It's always a reason, right? And then my spider sense goes off before other people's. And I automatically know if I want to deal. Because I have a zero bullshit detector. Zero. Zero, zero. Zero bullshit tolerance and an awesome bullshit detector. And my bullshit detector reads 0 all the time. And the second it starts flexing and twitching, it's like a big sphincter. Big sphincter. There was this guy I used to know named Mark Finkelstein. We both did shows on the same television station in Ithaca, right? And then every time I see him, I'd be like, hey, he was the log cabin Republican, gay Republican, whatever. And, he was all with George Bush at the time. And I looked at George Bush as just a piece of garbage that he is. and I could prove it. It wasn't like I couldn't prove it. I didn't paint my show as liberal for sure. I mean, there's probably times you can listen to it and say this guy's liberal. There's other times you listen to this guy's conservative. Whatever, it don't matter. I'm just me, and I like most of us, we're neither. We just have our own ideas, and there's things that we want, there's things that we don't want. So every time I see Mark, and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" He always thought it meant okay. He's like, I like. One day he was like, I like the okay signal in Israel. I said, dude, it's a twitching asshole. I'm giving you the twitching asshole. I invented that a long time ago. It was better than middle finger. Middle finger will get you there, but it's very quick and obnoxious. The twitching asshole is kind of, it just kind of says it all. You know what I mean? So, but the reality is, you shouldn't want other people to live by your rules. That's why we have a constitution. That's why we have a country. Those rules are basically rules that we can basically rule ourselves with our free speech and our Second Amendment, owning guns and things like that, as long as we don't break the big rules. We don't hurt anybody or victimize people and that type of thing. Corporations can do it. Well, they get away with murder, don't they? They get away with murder. And yeah, they give a boatload of money to politicians, Think about that. Think about that. They give all that money to politicians, and politicians look the other way so they can pollute, they can destroy, they can do their thing. They have a license to steal, isn't it? A license to steal. What's going on right now with the power concern upstate New York with this company called NYSEG. Got sold to a Spanish company a few years back. When it did, they made a lot of heavy cuts, got rid of people, buildings, equipment, and all that. So now when there's a problem, it takes a long time to fix the problem electrically, right? Then they wanted to put these digital meters in. So they went all around putting digital meters in, and they said that there would be no change to people's policy. All of a sudden, people start seeing these huge electric bills coming in. And they're like, well, the digital meters will pick up where the analog meters dropped off because they weren't as accurate or whatever. So now there's like a big inquiry, state inquiry and whatever. But the state doesn't have any regulation for this company. The state gave the company a license to steal. And so how could it be that every person out there in upstate New York that's dealing with this says the same thing, that their bill has gone 3 and 4 times of what it should be? My sister told me what her bill was. It was unbelievable. And she heats with coal and wood, nothing, just like normal electric usage. So that's being investigated. But you know what? When a corporation, it's like food prices, right? Do you expect them to come down? I don't expect them to come down, because I know once these big corporations or any business anyway starts collecting that kind of money and making those big profits, they get addicted to that. They don't want to let it go. It becomes part of their bottom line. They don't want to let it go, which means they're not going to lower the prices, which means if you're not making more money in your job, then of course you're still going to be paying a huge amount of money for these things. And because the corporations are saying people are getting by, they're paying for our stuff. Why should we lower our prices if they're paying for our stuff? Oh, is there a reason? Is there a reason that why we should lower our prices? No. Like gasoline prices. They don't want to lower them because people are paying the price already. And as soon as that one of those CEOs hears someone say, I don't mind the price. I remember that when the price under Obama, when those prices were going up. And you had this chick at the pump being interviewed by some whatever from whatever news it was. She's like, I don't mind paying a little more for gasoline. Yeah, I don't mind paying more. That's all the big CEO needs to see. Hey, I just saw this girl on TV say she don't mind paying more for gas. Let's raise it another $1. They got to get to work. Well, what else are they going to do? You got to get to work, right? What else are you going to do? You got to pay it. It's extortion. Doesn't matter. In New York State, 69 cents a gallon goes to tax just directly to the state, just for the state of New York, not including local tax and also federal tax. So you're really paying well over $1 a gallon. You get 10 gallons of gas, $10 goes to taxes. How can they justify that? How can they justify that huge amount of percentage on a gallon of gas? It's just stealing, isn't it? You're stealing from people who are supporting this country, who are driving this country, going to pick their kids up from school, going to drop them off, going to the store to spend their money to drive the local economy, going to pick up a pizza, going to get some Chinese food to drive the local economy, paying your taxes, man, all the big taxes. I'm sitting there looking at the taxes I'm paying in New York, and I'm totaling up the amount of taxes that I pay in New York. That would pay 6 months of a pretty decent mortgage in most other states. 6 months just from the taxes I pay. Certainly, it'd be extra money in my pocket. I have the advantage of working in a job where I can work in any state. It doesn't matter. All 50 states, as a matter of fact. It doesn't matter. So I'm looking at other states, looking at what's available, what kind of houses are available. I mean, you could definitely get more for less in a lot of places, but then you got to look at the back and forth of what that state's got versus the state you're leaving, and that. But also, once you live in New York as a resident, it's very hard to leave as a taxpayer. They still want you to pay extra going out the door, like an exit fee. So, are you free? Are you free? Is that freedom? Is that guaranteed in the Constitution? Is that the Bill of Rights? That freedom? Pay as you go? That's really how it is. In New York, they pay you for every fee, every dime, every nickel they can squeeze out of your ass, every bit they will take from you, every little tiny thing. And you're like, wow, all right. Here's a for instance. New York State's got a tire disposal fee, right, of $5 a tire, $20 if you get 4 tires. So I buy these special tires from my Jeep, the ones I like, the ones that don't fail when you're in all kinds of weather, right? And then I only put a small amount of miles on them. Then I buy a new set. I take the old set, and like a year, you know what I mean? So I take the old set and I sell them privately on whatever, a local thing, marketplace, whatever, man. And then that goes to help pay for the new tires. And then I have my new tires and I have my acceptable amount of money, whatever. It's just something that I do. So then they started doing this $5 disposal fee. So then I'm looking at the bill and I see they charge me $20 plus tax. $5 a tire disposal fee plus tax. Okay, plus tax. So their New York State fee is taxing their own fee. All right. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, $20, what's this for? That's the $5 disposable fee. You got to pay it $5 per tire. I'm like, well, I'm not disposing of the tires. I'm taking them with me. You're not throwing them out. You're not. And if whatever place you're changing your tires out, if you leave them there, they're not going to throw them out. They're going to sell them as used tires for $50, $60 a piece or whatever they can get out of it, right? Unless they're terrible. But if they're halfway decent, they'll sell the tires. That's what they do. So I'm like, you're telling me that I'm taking the tires with me. I can prove, it says on the receipt, customer took tires with him. It says that right on the receipt. I still had to pay the $5 per tire disposal fee. So it's not a disposal fee. It's a $5 per tire fee for getting new tires. You get new tires, it's a $5 fee. If they take a tire off and put another tire on, they're going to have to charge you that fee. That's what I'm talking about. That's you know what? And that's nickel and diming people to death. Whoever came up with that, it was a terrible idea, a terrible thing that they're doing. and they just want to be able to take everything you've got until you've got nothing left. You know, that's our government, and that's always been, and it's getting worse as time goes on. Now you got Trump in there. There's a lot of talk going on, but I want action, and he's going to have to move against these food companies, because they're not going to let go of the extra profits and extra money they're making. You should you should look. I've been following this from the beginning, even from before COVID. The profit margin of these companies, how much they have soared, especially oil companies. Especially oil companies are making 3 to 4 times the profits that they were making, and these are the top Fortune 500 corporations. They're the big earners. So I'm saying when these companies have a 40, 45% profit margin, when they should be operating more at a 20, 22, 25%, you know, and you're not charging them more in taxes with all that extra money. In fact, they're giving them better tax breaks. And then the Democrats said, well, Trump is going to give them all tax breaks. The Democrats did identically the same thing. They just want to say, it's okay if they do it, but not okay if somebody else does it. The reality is, you're the one paying the price. I don't shop at Walmart. I don't like their products. I don't like the people that shop. I don't like anything about it. I've had some bad experiences at Walmart, including the 3 black guys who were going to shoot each other, who were all talking about who had the bigger gun and more bullets. And then it became a serious situation. They had police end up coming, and the woman screaming over the PA in Walmart, help, 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 call the police, help. I was just telling people to go out the door and run for their lives. And I was trying to check out and get out of there. I only had a couple of things. I went to the register and I looked down. This girl's like hiding behind the register. I'm like, can you ring me up? And she's like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, I gotta get the hell out of here before the cops come. Gotta get the hell out of here. She rang me up. Kind of. She kind of reached up and boop, boop. I'm from the city. There's not much I haven't seen, all right? Just because guys are shooting at each other at Walmart doesn't mean I have to run out there without my products. But yeah, I keep waiting for that Prince in Shining Armor to ride in on a horse and solve people's problems. But I know that ain't going to happen. I know that we have to get through life every day. We have to survive every day. And in that survival, we got to make our sacrifices. And also, we'll have our good moments and our bad moments. And we still need to treat ourselves well. We still need to try to find some kind of happiness. And we still need to stay away from other people's bullshit because it doesn't help you or do anything good for you. It doesn't. It doesn't help your purpose in life. So go out there, be your purpose, be yourself, do the things that you feel good about doing. Lao Tzu, do what feels right, don't do what feels wrong. And I'm going to leave you with that on this here show. I'm gonna see you guys next week. I'm trying to get some guests on the show. I want to get John Edwards, man. I'm working on that. I really want to have a good conversation with him. And there's a few other people I have in mind too. But we'll figure that out as we go. And then I get lazy about it, and then I'm like, you know what? I'll just go on and talk to myself. It's only an hour. I could talk for hours straight. So it doesn't matter, as you can imagine. But I'm going to see you guys next week on the show. UFO Undercover every Wednesday night. News on the flip side. Friday, of course. What the hell are we on? 10 o'clock? 10 to 1:30 or something like that. The chat every Saturday, 7:30 to 10:30 is supposed to be. And me right here after the chat. So I'll see you guys on next week's show. Have fun. Love you. Thank you for hanging out, man. Be safe. Be safe, man. Trust your gut instinct. If you're out there and you don't feel right about something, trust your gut instinct, man. Because these are strange times and people are reacting strangely. Strange days. Jim Morrison, man. Strange days. I'll see you guys next week on the show. Bye.